What up, what up, what up, what up? Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Activated Podcast. I'm your host once again, Ibu. And today I went ahead and, what's crazy about this podcast a little bit, just to give y'all a little bit of a heads up, is that amazing things are starting to happen. And when I mean amazing thing, I have a good friend of mine, longtime friend who I've known, decided to reach out to me just randomly. And then, which is that conversation now is turned into a podcast, which is today what we're talking about. It's I had to even do homework for this podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, usually I get on here and I kind of know what I'm talking about, but today, up to today, I had to study, I had to read articles. So I really hope you guys pick up information from this. I'm excited to learn. And I have this is my ex-colleague, and I would like to say a brother, because we are from neighboring countries. My friend Youssouf is here with me today.
Yes, Ibrahim. It's a nice place. It's such a pleasure to see you and you coming here asking my point of view about this new technology. I'm super happy.
And actually, just so you guys know, you actually initiated this. So I got a message on Facebook, randomly from Youssouf, and then Youssouf went, I heard you're looking for somebody to come here and talk about cryptocurrency. So this is kind of how it even started. And I go, wait a minute, what the hell is cryptocurrency?
I think I could read that your people who listen to your podcast, I think they need to know a little bit. So that's
and this is why we created a platform to allow people to really come, and I don't want to say get educated, because today we're giving you our perspective on what we learned.
True.
But it definitely should be the opening
for more education.
It intrigued me. So as soon as when you send the message, you was like cryptocurrency, I didn't reply right away. I don't know if you probably pay attention to. I said, okay, wait a minute. Youssouf got, what's going on over there? Let me go figure it out. So when I type cryptocurrency, first thing I see is Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So, but it's obviously it's deeper than that, and we're gonna get into it a lot more as we're going about. And also, I was thinking about, with the holiday season around, a lot of y'all gonna look to spend money, gifts, and I was like, this would be a perfect subject to talk about. Let's talk about money a little bit, and not just money as far as your credit card balance is is due and you're not paying it, but more so the other side of learning, whether it's investing. Just the other side of it. So for those, obviously, a lot of people might not be familiar with you. Just to kind of give you a little bit of history with me and Youssouf, on my first podcast, when I talked about Chase Your Dream, and I was working at a place for about 3.5 years, pursuing my dream, of course, was to get into my own field of study. Yeah. And the first day of that job, when I went to training, Youssouf was in the classroom with me. So, we started together, and 3-4 years later, he moved up, working at the same spot. He's went to do different things, and I've went on to do different things. I don't even no longer work there, but it's just amazing that we can, a couple years later, when we gotten smarter, right? Yeah, we could come back and have these intuitive conversation, and just to pass down the message. So if you had to maybe, I don't know, describe yourself in 3 words, whatever. I don't want to make it sound boring, but for those listening to it, give them 3 things.
Yeah. Wow. How do I start?
Well, I think number one, you love to travel.
I definitely love traveling. I do actually hardcore traveling, not just.
That's what I was going to say. Some of us we travel, we book hotels.
Yes.
But Youssouf,
I use couch surfing, Airbnb in different places. So that's my passion. I love to do that.
And prior to even us starting to record, because we had a long conversation. Obviously, we're catching up because I haven't seen you in a while. And you were telling me how you were traveling. You went from Mali to Egypt, all the way to South Africa.
Yes.
In a bus.
Yes.
So clearly you're not. You don't have any regard for your own safety.
No, it's a joy of discovering Africa. It's actually you wouldn't know, you wouldn't feel at home. You will not miss home, because this is the same continent that we have. You go to Sudan. People from Sudan are very similar to people in Nigeria.
For sure.
And then you have all these things that will remind you back home. So I love to experience those little moments, and not only in Sudan, right? You go to Ethiopia, it's amazing. You take it all the way down. So during those time, I try to maybe educate people on cryptocurrencies. Maybe
as you're traveling as well. You traveling. Oh, okay.
And I always, every time that I have an opportunity, I would like to talk about it. Maybe get another perspective
and get which is good. I mean, the whole traveling thing. The thing that scares me a little bit. I feel like even when I go back to Niger, which I have been going for the past 2 years, as soon as they see me, they know that I don't want to say I'm foreign because that is home, but you could pick me apart. So imagine me being on a bus and traveling across the continent. I feel like somebody gonna pull a knife on me.
Of course,
which I also talk about in my second episode. If you've not listened to it, please go ahead. But I mean,
cool stuff.
Okay, on the small talk. So I want to start very basic. I'm sure a lot of y'all know, you're familiar with money. If you're not, you're not living in this new era. But if you have to break it down for people, money, right? Because I looked into it. What is the basics of money? Like, how do we get to the point where now, like, money is this thing for us, which we buy things with? Can you kind of tell us the origins? Like, what were people doing, like, I don't know, in caveman days or whatever, way back in the day?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a good opportunity. I wanted to maybe let your audiences know I studied finance when I was going to university, finance and investment. Okay. So that allowed me to maybe get more interested in money and anything that has anything to do
like economics and things like that.
Economics. So I was always interested in such a thing, right? But to go back to your question, what is money? I think basically money is a medium of exchange. Let's say you have a cell phone. I want that cell phone. I wanted to give you something that you're going to accept, right? In exchange. So I give you that. If I have oranges, I will give you oranges. You will give me a cell phone,
right?
So I think that's where money started. And this is not new. This has been there for a long time. And as we progress in history, some of the things that we value now. Yeah. So, for example, let's go back to your daily example of your cell phone. Today, I can give you, let's say I give you another cell phone in exchange. So that is our means of exchange.
Right.
But maybe in 10 years from now, this mean of exchange is not going to be valid anymore. So if I try to give you a cell phone in 10 years, you might say, no, man, come on, what are you talking about?
It's like somebody trying to give you like a Nokia from 2002 and things like that. Okay.
Exactly, right? Even though we know that Nokia, you can actually sell it, right, somehow. Even if you have an old Nokia today,
you'll be able to, okay.
You can sell it for some money. So money is basically a medium of exchange that we use to get things from each other. I want this, I will give you this one, you will give me this. And throughout the history, so this has changed, right? If you look at the beginning of the time, let's say like 5000 BC in Egypt, for example, right. The medium of exchange were not definitely critical.
Like were they like trading like, I don't know, like furs and things? I guess that's
earlier. That's earlier. You will go back earlier to have those trading. So those trades are basically in kind, right? You have some feathers,
okay,
and then you can exchange this with some fruits, or maybe you have a trunk of elephant, right?
Yeah.
But you can exchange it somewhere to get
something else. Okay.
But the most interesting. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
so the most interesting is this. Like you have to imagine. Let's say that our currency is shisha, right? Mm-hmm. But we live close to a sea. Like there will be so many seashells. Like we're not going to pay attention to this. It's not going to be a mean of exchange. So money has a bunch of characteristics that in order to be considered as money, you have to fulfill this. According to economists, there are maybe 6 or 7 characteristics that, it has to be divisible, it has to be easy to transport, it has to be fungible, which is basically being able to transfer.
Okay.
So you have all these characteristics of money.
She did homework. Mm-hmm. So when I was reading it, it was talking about how previously, like there was, I guess the bank was obviously they held the money, whatever, but whatever tender they would give you was backed up by something. At the time, it could have been, I think it was gold or whatever it was. Yeah. And then to the point that now, like, the government is, I guess, tells you this is worth $10, and then you're supposed to just take it for that.
Yes.
How is that evolvement, or how is that evolved in your point of view?
That is a very good question. We have a lot of situation going on around the world right now regarding, and it has a lot of things to do with the currencies that are produced by government. So let's say, for example, let's look at the U.S., for example, right?
Yeah.
The U.S. doesn't have anything that back the U.S. dollar. So
Did they used to?
They used to before I think it was 1950s. They changed the structure to. There was an economic convention that they signed to remove gold as a backing.
Because they didn't have no more gold.
Exactly. So this is so now.
So they were giving you a piece of paper that wasn't worth much.
Yes, exactly. At that time they were able to print money. Actually, you could actually print money at that time. But now you just punching the bank and just go on the computer and you say, okay, we're going to create $10,000, or they will give you a loan for, let's say, $50,000. Let's say that they give you a loan for $50,000.
Right.
I mean, that's not your money, but you start spending this. The bank actually might not have that $50,000. They have something called fractional reserve. So fractional reserve is if two people come into the bank and they deposit $100 right now, so total is 100. The bank is able to actually lend maybe another 1,000 for this, because they have only 100. They can lend 1,000
up to wow.
Because exactly. So this is only created out of thin air.
I'll be honest with you. So, after today, I might go close my bank account.
Yes, the bank can do this, right? So they can print this money. They can virtually create this money into your bank account like this, and this has a lot of consequences. Because when the national, the central banks and the commercial banks continue doing this, what happens is the money will lose value, right? It will become as in Zimbabwe, or maybe Venezuela, or maybe Argentina, or maybe in Greece, where the money doesn't have any value anymore because they have printed so many
of it. And I think it did happen in several countries in Africa actually, which I feel like we'll get to it. And I actually had some questions to ask you about that.
Yes.
Because that was kind of like the first time when I was reading the headline that says that poor billionaires or something like that. And I was like, how can you be a billionaire and be poor? But we'll definitely warm up to get to that.
We'll get to that.
So now, because of the I guess first of all, is the government controlling money? Like, is that a good thing? Is it something that we should be happy about? I mean, not like we have a choice, but we do kind of got a choice. But just to kind of get your perspective, is it a good thing that the government controls this?
That's a very good question. I am not a trained politician. I don't.
Nobody is.
It's a little bit hard here, but yes, you can say that it has been always like this. So the power that the state has right now regarding currencies, I think it has been always like this before. So it has always been a center, like someone who you can. I can produce. So you can think about the kings or queen in Greece, for example.
I guess they're like the government or the bank, or you want like almost like gatekeepers to control this thing. But also, I feel like with any control comes, I always tell people the number one thing is gonna end the world. Mm-hmm. Sorry to say, but it will be like the human error and our greed for always. We're like hoarders. We want whatever it is. We want more of. If we got a cell phone. We want to tell cell phones. Like it's cool. Like how many phones you got? Yes. I got 2, or whatever it is. So, in a sense, and the 2008 crisis. Obviously, this is what everybody talks about over and over. Mm-hmm. When the stocks exchange went to shit. Does that come from us trusting the government to handle the money?
So the crisis is the economic crisis in the U.S. There was a lot of issues coming up, right? You have the mortgage issues that were there. The banks were giving mortgages to anyone who applied for it. I feel
like that's also like right now is happening in Canada as well.
Yes. So people have the same wording for Canada now. They are thinking about the same thing. But so U.S. you have all these lending that were happening, not only in mortgages, even between they were giving loan to anyone basically. I remember I had an American Express when I was going to university. It was like I don't know, maybe 25,000. I was going to school.
How did they even verify that?
Exactly. What do you?
But I feel like they because I have a credit card. I actually, personally, I have 2 credit cards.
Yes.
And that's all I have. And I started with a balance, I don't know, 2,000 or something. I'm upwards, maybe getting close to 10 because every time, every few months they're like, oh yeah, you pay off your balance every month. Let me give you more. Now, I'm very like, maybe I shouldn't use me as an example, but I know what I'm doing when it comes to my credit card. Obviously, like I don't. What I spend get paid off every month as you should.
Yes.
So I guess that's enticing them to keep increasing. Like now we're like, oh, would you like to get to 10 grand? Would you like to get to 15 grand? Sometimes what I'll do is, this is a little bit of gem for you guys listening, because they give you points when you get new credit cards. So what I'll do is I'll be like, no, instead of you giving me this increase, let me get this Aero plan. So when I get the Aero plan, when you spend the $500, you get like 15,000 points, which you can fly with. So for that month, all my bills, I pay them with my credit card, and then I pay it off. So I guess there's a way to trick the system.
You can benefit. You can benefit from it, definitely. Taking advantage of the point.
Yeah.
There's also some of the cards they have cash back, even though it's small.
Yeah.
Maybe 2% if you get back 2%
I guess it's better than getting no money.
Exactly. So you get those 2% things off. So yes, there is definitely a chance to exploit that system that exists right now. Be smart about it. Make sure that you don't spend too much that you are not able to pay.
You're not overwhelmed.
Or make sure that if you are spending used car that you're getting something back, maybe you're getting cash back or maybe some of those points. So those are really good stuff. But to go back to your question on in the crisis in the US.
Yeah.
The crisis itself is very hard to avoid these crises that happen in the economic. But how does the government handle afterward? Because if you think about the U.S. after these crises, what happened is the U.S. printed a bunch of money. They gave the banks billions of dollars, right?
And, it's interesting you're talking about this today. I watched this movie on Netflix called, I think it's Capitalism or what about cat? Something like that. It just came out. Today's the first day.
Yeah.
So I was watching it, and I was, what's the crazy part about it is like we're at a point where now we know. Like the average human being should know. Like, listen, this is how this system works. Yeah. And I think when you realize that, it's almost like we're not being humans to each other. Like all we are interested in is how much money we're going to gain. When we're talking about even in Canada, you got 3 cell phone companies that controls everything. And then now when you want to go from one plan to another, it's like, oh, you got to pay, it's $90. And then you go to Bell, it's 110. So you're not, with little competition, they like you say, it's a monopoly. But more importantly, what we need to be aware of is also they implement laws because they have the money to pay these politicians to implement laws that would then benefit them. And I don't know if people are not aware of, a couple of years ago, we had like a surgence of 3 new cell phone companies that came. I think it was like Chatter, Freedom, which Fido was always around, but it was another one, and was it Chatter? But anyways, 2 of these companies now are owned by Rogers, so that defeated the whole purpose. And I think the only one that's still like independent is, I believe, Freedom, and Freedom has the worst service on the planet Earth.
Definitely.
Like I go back home in Niger and I have way better service than you would with that, and that's because 3 company they control the airways. And then they set the tone. You know what? We're not allowing nobody Canada, because at the end of the day, at this point, we can't go without our cell phones.
Yeah, you can't.
So you're, just like the banks as well. Like we got like 2-3 banks.
Yeah. So banks they have lobbies in anywhere. I think they just, and those lobbies they promote the bank idea. So they go to the government to say, you have to lower the interest rate, otherwise we're going to. But they can actually yes, they can actually be violent, in this type of thing. So the banks have this bad reputation in that area. The relationship that they have with the government in printing money, right, on the back of the people. Because if you look at it, for example, I mean, this is corny, like everyone uses this, but 15 years ago or 20 years ago, your $20 was able to buy some good stuff.
Yeah.
But today, that doesn't happen.
You go to a grocery store with $20,
Yes.
you might have to steal
Exactly.
the rest
Bro,
of your groceries.
I go to Walmart, like my bread, only a couple of croissant and things like that is like $100. $100.
I think for Walmart, when you go to Walmart, I don't know that you come out spending less than at least $60, and then you get home, you're like, what did I buy? Like, this is like, obviously the money doesn't go as far as it used to be.
Definitely.
So now all right, sorry, go ahead, continue.
So this effect in economic is called inflation, right? So inflation happens when the government is capable of printing all the money that they want. So at the end of the year, they will say, okay, we need $20 billion. We're going to print it. No one cares. We're going to when we print this money, we're going to create economic stimulation. So this is basically pumping money into the society. But at the same time, what they are doing is to increase the rate of inflation. So inflation used to be maybe like 1%. It's good. Inflation is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But to a certain point, it's not good for people who save. You know, you save. Let's say you have an RSP account and you have like $10,000 in your RSP account, right?
Yeah.
Like after 2 years, when you look at it, probably it increased only by maybe $200 if you're lucky, actually. after the fees. So imagine in the long run. So basically, what is happening in the long run is you are losing value of something that you
work your whole life for.
Yes.
And for those that I'm familiar, I guess RSPs is the equivalency in the U.S. will be a 401k plan or whatever it's called. So I guess that's when you save long term from when you're 20 until you're ready to retire and things like that. And at the bank too, where we work, that's I became an RSP expert after I left there.
Master.
Yeah, no, I did, and I used to tell my friends like, yo, you know what, you should do this with your RSP. They looked at me like I was crazy, but I was just like, yeah, but
those are basic stuff.
I mean, it is basic when you because before that I didn't know what an RSP was.
True. I was not aware of it.
Like I didn't know, the pulling out money from your RSPs. Yeah. You not only do you lose, they tax you from that, and then at the end of the year, the government now says, "Oh, since you withdraw $5,000, your
tax bracket,
your income increased by $5,000 or whatever. Therefore, now you're in a different tax bracket. Let's say if you go from 40 to 45. Therefore, now we're going to tax you more on the money that we already taxed you. I mean, it sounds. We're saying it with ease, but I mean it's worth being not an expert, but being aware of these things when these guys come in. They want to sell you loans to get RSPs and things like that.
Yes, you have to be aware of this, and I think this is a good podcast for us to maybe share some of the knowledge that we have in that area, making sure that people are not trapped.
I mean, I feel like I'm not becoming. My whole point is to pass down knowledge that I learned, and as important, or I know people not really grasping the maybe the premises of it and things like that, but it's really important because I tell you what, the things, and I speak about my journey when I started, and I worked in collection agency for a few years while I was in school. Like my credit came out A1 because of that, because a lot of things I learned by calling people and educating them, like, yo, you don't pay this bill, you're going to be affected. So it's almost like, because I knew better, I was like, I cannot be I can't work in a collection agency with a bad credit.
Definitely.
Right? And then also when I went to the bank, I was like, I'm here telling people how RSPs is good, but I don't have my own RSP. So then I started saving for that as well. Yeah. So all these things is like, as you're listening to this, maybe you pick up, the whole point of the podcast is if you're able to walk away with one thing that I say, I mean, trust me, we will be better in the near future. And just to kind of short format it, think about it. If you wake up every day, you increase your overall knowledge by 1%.
It's exponential.
You know what I mean? In 300 and whatever, you're not 365%. And it sounds crazy, but it is definitely attainable. But let's go back to this money thing.
Definitely.
So when I was reading, so we're talking about the government and, things fell in 2008, as brief as that was. But that kind of, I feel, created a lane for a new kind of currency, which is called cryptocurrency. This is the message that I got from you. I was like, cryptocurrency? What the hell is this? So we have in the house a cryptocurrency expert.
Yes.
So explain to us what that transition was like, or maybe the origin, like, if we even know who came up with this, I guess, amazing idea now.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So after 2008, like the crisis in the U.S., economists and people who are really, really interested in, I don't know how to say it, but there are some group of people that they belong to this economic idea, libertarian. So they wanted to see less role of the government getting involved in printing money.
Okay.
So this group, they are everywhere, So, and one of those main ideas is basically reduce the role of institutions and government in crypto, like in exchanging money, right?
Okay.
And after the crisis of 2008 was a perfect example to create something new.
Yeah.
And basically, it's using things that we are used to today. You are used to your cell phone. You can send a message to someone in Africa very easily. So basically, Bitcoin or blockchain technology is using things that we are familiar today. It's very basic in some sense.
So like using your cell phone to
send money.
But wouldn't that be the same thing if we're talking about MoneyGram?
Yes, or Western money in Africa. Very similar to those.
But I guess those will be, and like I said, as I'm talking about it, I'm also trying to make sense of it. So basically, what it will be is removing the middleman. So I mean, now I guess if you want to send your mom $100 in, let's say, Niger, I have to go to Western Union, who then would charge me $10.
Definitely.
Depending on how much I send.
Yes.
And then they're the middlemen. They make that money available
to the person.
So, and then cryptocurrency is removing, you send it directly
to that whoever person you want. Because if you think about it, let's think about a different scenario. Because if you say you want to send money to your mom, probably most of us will think about maybe $500, $1,000, $2,000.
Yeah, okay.
But imagine if you were
$2,000, my friend.
Let's say you wanted to send $10,000 to your mom right now,
right?
And you want her to have it tomorrow morning. Do you think it's possible? First of all, MoneyGram.
No, it's not. It's not possible.
Right. Tomorrow, if you go at MoneyGram and try to send $10,000, they're going to tell you that you don't have the right to do this. Actually, they will say, no, you cannot send that much money.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, so there's also
there is a limit. There is a limit.
Youssouf, you might be rich because
no,
I've never.
That is not an indication of my richness.
Because you thinking big, let me go to MoneyGram and get this 10 grand off.
Right.
I've never had that luxury so far, but I guess they do put a limit.
Yes,
to
they
that.
just put a limit of. Or worst case, there are even worse scenarios. They will let you send money to your mom, but they are going to refuse to give the money to your mom. Actually, this happened to people. I know people who use MoneyGram. I use MoneyGram myself. I send money to my brother in Mali sometimes. He cannot pick up the money. They will call me. I need to call another number, spend hours with them, and then I'm going to release so much information about myself, the address that I'm living in.
You got to do all
closest, the closest section. These are privacy breach. This is happening every single day.
That is crazy.
Even
but
Uber, listen, today Uber lost more than 58 million records.
Oh shit!
Yes, so imagine.
So all you Uber people,
of course. So
they got breached as well.
Yes, they got a breach today. So this is what the hacker
this is
can see.
Newsflash for you guys.
This hacker can actually see where you spent your Saturday night the other day. Who knows? Maybe you didn't want anyone to know. But Uber has all this record of where you have been when you take the taxi, right? So now you can be. These are other things.
Yeah.
Let's not go into that deep. So basically, what I'm trying to say is every time that there is a centralized position, like Uber, which is centralized.
Yeah.
Or a bank.
Centralized, when you say centralized, they have servers in one place and things like that?
They have server in one place. They have all this data about, the clients.
Stored in the place,
in one
okay.
place. So it's a very dangerous situation. If you look at Equifax in the U.S., right? This is very bad situation. The credit card, your credit card information, your social security numbers are all over the place.
Yeah,
you have no idea where these information are. So from 2008, so what happened is they created one of the. It can be a person or maybe a group of person.
Right.
They created this paper to say that normally they can, with the technology that we have now, we can facilitate change of value. So if I wanted to send you a value, I can actually use the internet. And
Okay.
I don't need a central point. So I don't need someone like Uber. Or I don't need a bank. If I'm trying to send
You cut out the middleman. You
Cut out
go
the
straight to
middleman.
the source. If I want to give you $5, I give you $5, no fees in between.
Yes,
but
there will be a little fee. Sorry, like in right now, a lot of people say that there is no fee, but there is a small fee in Bitcoin transactions.
Because that's kind of how they sell it. But I was just like, that's the question I was actually going to ask you is, so what about the app that you're using to facilitate that transaction? I'm sure that that company has to get paid because they're not making a free app for no reason. Right?
Actually, when you use the app, most of these apps are open source. So basically, you can take the codes and then make it better for yourself. But the fee that you pay on the app to send money on Bitcoin is not for the person who created the app. It's actually for miners.
Okay.
So miners, they
like the developers and people that worked on it, or
no, the miners are they own farm, they own servers, a bunch of servers. Let's say a building like this, full of computers.
oh, okay. So it's people that kind of like renting out their space for the servers.
Yes,
To enable these transactions to happen.
Exactly. So
Oh,
every
okay.
time that there is every time when I try to send you, let's say 1 Bitcoin right now, so I'm going to also specify the price that I'm willing to pay for this transaction to happen. So it can be a few cents, it can be maybe $2, depending on the network.
Okay,
situation.
okay.
Yes. So, but that money will go to the miners.
Okay, so they okay. That's still. I guess it'll be cheaper and better than if you went through actual like.
Of course. So, and then right now, what is happening is since Bitcoin is open source, there are a bunch of engineers, cryptographers, working all over the world to make this better. So there are solutions that are creating right now. For example, SegWave or Lightning networks. So this will allow you to send money maybe like for $1 or like less than $1 to anyone in the world. It doesn't matter. It can be $1 billion. You can actually send like
you able to do that?
Yes, someone made a transfer from Hong Kong. I think from Hong Kong to US. I think $25 million in a couple of minutes. This is not possible in our current situation. So basically, what we can see from now is money has to evolve. Evolve. Like there is an evolution all the time. We used to have checks. Like no one has checked anymore.
No.
Now you have credit cards. But now we are starting to actually stop using credit card because we can have apps. You can have Google apps on your phone.
Actually, yeah. I actually use my what's it called? My Apple Pay all the time now, and I feel like every time I go somewhere, like you guys got Apple Pay. Like
Yes.
I be trying to sound like I'm fancy, but it's just the credit card.
Right.
But
Information setting.
yeah, go ahead.
So you have that. So now you have the apps on your phone and you can make transfer. But the problem is this is actually really good for us, right? Like here in Canada, for example, we don't have any issues. If I want to send you money, I can just go to Interact, transfer, right? Those are very easy. But once you try to go like on the international level or cross-border level, that's when the situation. That's where most of the problem happen.
But even back, like, is the technology where it needs to be to facilitate these things? Because, I mean, I guess in North America, anyways, we don't have. It's not a big deal. But I guess where this makes more sense is these developing countries that are on the come up, and the technology is catching up and things like that. And we keep saying Bitcoin. Is that the only cryptocurrency that's right now available, or that's like the most popular one?
That's the most popular one.
Okay.
The first one, but there are a bunch of ones.
Oh, so that's the first one ever created.
That is the original, the original Bitcoin that have ever existed, created by Satoshi Nakamoto. And then you have.
By the way, who nobody knows.
Yes, so no one knows Satoshi Nakamoto. And then, to be honest, it's a little bit mysterious to just come up with such a brilliant idea.
Of course, that's a Chinese man.
Yes, he has a name of like a Japanese.
Japanese, yes.
There's one Japanese guy in California. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto. This guy, when they found, like some journalists found him online,
yeah,
man, his life was changed because every single day
They
there
will
were
go-
hundreds of journalists on his at the door on his door.
harassing. And you know what? Like I said, when I was preparing for this podcast, one of the movies, and you guys listening could go watch it. It's on YouTube. No, not YouTube. Sorry, it's on Netflix. And I think if you type in Bitcoin, you'll see it. And they kind of was talking about this guy, but they had a lot more. What should I call it? They had a lot more like proof and things like that, where things line up where it could have been him. But then when they shine the camera on him, he's like, "What? What's going on?"
Yes, please. Yeah, let me.
So right now they don't even know who created this.
Yes.
This coin.
It wouldn't make sense, right, for the creator to come online and say, "I did this."
Yeah, that's how you know it's not a black person, because a black person, we want credit. We want the credit. If you find out I created Bitcoin, like, think about it. We come up with the most useless shit, and then we want the whole world, oh yeah, I did that. That's me right there. You see that? That's me.
It's killing me. It's killing me.
No, but it's true.
This is
like
right.
we
very funny guy. Appreciate it, man. Love the time with you here.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it could have been a black, because we would have won credit all over it. So, can you tell us any other ones? Because right now I think as we're talking about this now, Bitcoin is it's like the popular girl in school that when she get popping, guys, it's too late. You know what I'm saying? The ones that we seen on Instagram now, they got 10,000 followers. I always tell my guys, listen, it's too late. You have to known her in high school. So before she got that confidence. So, and when I talk about that is Bitcoin now, it's one, as we're talking about today, it's like 10 grand. So now everybody going crazy. Yo, I should have, things like this. I find it fascinating, but I don't feel like I miss out because it's not my area of expertise. Like, so, but if there's other currency that is now maybe 50 cents or whatever, any other ones that you can maybe tip us off so we can maybe be millionaires?
So honestly, I would like to make sure that this is not a financial advice.
No, of course not. We just up here just giving our.
So don't ever put any money that you are not.
We're not liable, guys. We're not liable. If you go lose your 10 grand, it ain't got nothing to do. Activated Podcast will not be liable for that. But any other one that you could think of?
Definitely, there are a bunch of ones. There are almost like I would say more than 500 different currencies with different functions.
Shit.
Yes, with different functions. So if you are, let's say you are, you don't want anyone to know about your transaction, there are specific coins for this. So you can spend money. No one would know actually who you are. You can use this type of coin. So there are a bunch of like Ethereums, Dash, for example, Zcash. Zcash is amazing. But those right now, they are not like at the $1 level.
Oh, they're not. Okay,
no.
Which I think that's even Bitcoin. They started way below that, right?
Yes, Bitcoin started definitely in at the $1 level, fell down.
But is that a little bit? So now that you mentioned this, how it could be sent, and there's some that are actually untraceable.
Yes.
As I was watching this movie as well, is they, anything to start to gain traction, the government always want to come and, we want to make it better. We want to regulate. Yes. They did that with Airbnb, which I actually loved.
Yes.
Right? Because I had my own Airbnb. I was making shit ton of money, bro. Like, we talking a month, but, and they banned it now. Today as we're talking, Toronto is trying to introduce these things to cripple almost the system. And I think they have also tried that with Bitcoin. How successful are we to, how close are we to seeing maybe a Bitcoin being regulated? Is that in the works?
It's a very good question, Ibrahim. The most interesting thing is Bitcoin is not centralized because you are not going to go after any person. Like, they cannot go after you.
So they can't shut down anything that it just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you come, for example, I have Bitcoin on this phone right now. You come, I will give it to you. You won't be able to do anything. You don't have the password. So the role of the government is very, at this point, people think that there will be the government is not going to have enough power to do anything about this. They can shut down exchanges where you buy Bitcoin.
Okay.
But that cannot remove Bitcoin out of existence.
In
order to, you can regulate Bitcoin people have tried this. The Chinese government have tried for, let's say...
Oh, they've been trying to...
Yes,
and even in the thing that I watch in New York, they put all this thing together about. I mean, I don't remember the details, but they're definitely trying to suffocate this thing because anything that the government can tax and make money off
definitely
is bad for the people. But
they will go after it.
Which is why, like nowadays, it's so important because all we want to do is be independent, and this is also breeding a lot of entrepreneurs. Everybody want to start their own business. We don't trust the government. The more this goes on, these financial crises that are happening.
Yes.
And if you're in the city of Toronto, and you own a property right now, you're a little nervous. So it's obviously, I think this is why these things are gaining popularity. And even when we see like a Donald Trump being elected, is because he came on there and said a whole bunch of stuff that was crazy. And you're like, what? People actually voted for this guy. Yes. And I was watching this movie. Like, you guys got to go check it out. It's called Capitalism. It just went out. Maybe you guys already watched it by the time you listen to the podcast. But I was watching a family that was deciding to vote for Donald Trump. And one of the guys said the reason why they wanted to vote for him because he knows how to run a business.
Yes.
But guys, the country, the welfare of human beings is not a business. You know what I mean? And it's almost what takes us away from being, it's like right now, like we're doing this out of love. Yes. You're not getting paid. Exactly. I'm definitely not getting paid. Yes. We taking time out, and for me, I enjoy it. So imagine now if it was like you call me up and I go, yo, Youssouf, for me to come out there, it's gonna cost you about $250 plus gas. Like it takes away from everything that we're having. So it
removes humanity on how we deal. Like having business minded all the time or everything, because business is about profit, and then sometimes we don't need money to exchange
and to even for sure walking away from this today, I will feel a lot fuller than when I came in. Like just the feeling of it.
The little bit of information that you gather here and there, that's enough, right? But I think this is I think it's a society type of issue. It's a bigger issue, right? There are some societies that are more toward this type of competition, like going after business. I don't care about anyone. I just care about myself.
I just got
like that, right?
Even me. Sorry to cut you off, but when I and then that's when I realized like I'm not looking to like advice only take you so far, but it's like I want to do things I'm evolving to the point I want to do things to feel good. Not so much about the money aspect of it. I think money is the last thing on my mind. Yeah. And ever since I kind of make that switch in my life, money's been coming just subconsciously. I don't have to think. Like I haven't had to think about when my next paycheck is coming. So I even forget, like not to even sound arrogant, but I'm not even tracking these things down because we are, we got to start to do things to feel right. And maybe this is why Bitcoin is, like, removing the government and regulation, make people, gravitate towards it. But we also, earlier, we talked about how what devaluates money is the more you print. How much Bitcoin is out there? Like, are they making them every day, or how does that system work?
That's a very good question, Ibrahim. So in the currency world, there is no limit. The government can print anytime. And the consequences of that is inflation.
Okay.
So your money will lose value as we go down.
Okay.
But Bitcoin is the opposite. Bitcoin is deflationary, and there is a limit to the number of coins that exists. So there is only 21 million. So it's only 21 million.
21 million coins.
Yes.
Okay.
Only 21 million coins that exist. That is going to exist forever. So you can see the difference from there. Like. Then, our current situation is we're going to keep losing value on what we have. But if you have Bitcoin,
it's going to
keep. The expectation is, once we reach this 21 million, it's going to be so high.
So, but who initially started giving them out? Like, how did they?
So you don't get Bitcoin like that. So if there are different ways of getting it.
So today, right now, let's say I got 10 grand.
Yes. So you have 10 grand right now,
and I want to buy one because I guess that's all I'll be able to get today. Unfortunately.
Very good question. First of all, your current banking system is not going to allow you to do this 10,000 transaction. They are going to put some barrier. Maybe your limit is going to be $250. today if you wanted to buy
Shit.
Bitcoin. Okay, so this is internal business, so
Right.
that's fine. But if you wanted to buy $10,000 of Bitcoin right now, you have different ways. So there is a website called Local Coins. So local Bitcoin, I think it's local Bitcoin. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't use it. So these ones, people who have Bitcoin and they are located in Toronto, they are going to go post that they have Bitcoin and they want to sell it, like Craigslist.
Okay.
That's one way. The second way is I can give it to you. So I'm here, I have $10,000 enough. You have it cash right now. We deal it. It's closed. 10 minutes later, everything is done.
You just transfer it to me. Okay.
Yes. The third option is you go to an exchange. So exchanges are companies that have a bunch of Bitcoin and they can sell it. But for those exchanges to have Bitcoin, they talk to another group of people that are called miners. So these miners, since they secure this network,
Yeah.
at every block they receive 12.5 Bitcoin. So because if you look at the Bitcoin network, it's a series of block. Each block contains multiple transactions. So let's say that right now in 5 minutes, if you look at some of the website, you're going to see a bunch of transactions being put into a small bucket. So imagine like a small bucket.
Right. Everybody putting their money
Exactly.
in one
So
space. Yeah.
These are the transactions that are going to happen in 10 minutes. So each transaction has a little fee. So miners, their computer are going to see this. They are going to say, oh yes, there is a new block. Let me see if I can go solve this block. So there is some calculation that I need to do in order to solve the block. Once they solve the block, a new Bitcoin is going to be automatically created by the system and given to those people. So
Okay.
people the miner who just solved the block. So he's going to receive 12.5 Bitcoin. And now we can take this Bitcoin, sell it to exchanges, or maybe.
So in other words, it's like exchanging of service. Like if to break it down, if you're smart enough, you can resolve this issue, then you get 12.5.
Exactly.
Now I'm doing the math, Youssouf.
Yes.
Okay.
Do the
12.5 that's about 100,000, 120.
Of course, people get this. You get this in 30 minutes, 20 minutes. But
How smart you gotta be? Can we do that? Because I might start to become.
It's a very good question, Ibrahim. These are opportunities that you can take advantage of. So
But I guess these are like software developers, people with a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Not like the average person walking off the street and decide.
At the beginning, it was very easy. You could download this application on your computer right now and then let it run for forever.
Yeah.
Right, and then it will do like work in the background. But now it has become so big.
Yeah. Of course.
This $100,000. Imagine that you get $100,000 every 20 minutes or every 25 minutes. You have to have billions of dollars of computers. So if you go to China or you go to YouTube, you look for miner. You type miner China, for example. You're going to see warehouses.
Okay, so so then that would, I guess, you gotta have the money and the firepower to get into the war.
To get into that war.
Yeah.
The war of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? But,
of course, we're not shooting nobody.
But there are other technologies. There are other softwares that will allow you to participate in pools. So, for example, I will connect to this website. You will do it from your home. And then the network is going to combine all the
computers and
become very powerful, and then they can go mine.
So I guess once they get it, do they split it?
They will split it. They will split it based
on your output to generate them.
It will tell you.
Yo, this is very interesting.
Yes,
man.
there was an article on Bloomberg. I don't know if you know. Bloomberg is it's an investment magazine in the U.S.
Yeah, I've read a couple of things from there.
They wrote an article about a Kenyan guy, a Kenyan guy who has a mining farm in his place in Kenya. Actually, he's making money, and because these softwares, what they do is they switch, right, between currencies. Because as I say, there are a bunch of currencies, so they can actually switch when they see that there is an advantage of mining a specific coin. The software will definitely
they'll switch it out. Okay, so it's not only Bitcoin; it's other.
Exactly.
So this is a whole different world of happening.
Yes, it's a completely different new world that we have never seen before. Like no one, it's very rare to see someone who has seen the transition, imagine in the history of money,
Yeah.
because as we mentioned, we used to have gold before. That's what we used.
We went from gold to
Yes,
the banks
yes.
and
Imagine
loans.
the time when someone just came up on the street, let's say in Babylon, and say, "Okay, no more gold. We are going to use this paper money here."
They must say
yes.
they're like, what? What's going?
What are you talking about?
But if and I don't know, you haven't answered this yet. But
Yes.
if you had 10 grand today,
yes,
this is not giving people advice.
yes.
Would you buy one?
I will buy one for sure. Sorry, this is only personal.
Hey guys, maybe
very-
we should listen. I might know 10 people that got $1,000 each.
If you have that, Bitcoin is even more powerful than this. You can have an escrow account. So escrow account is this. You're going to open an account with those 10 people. They will always have a password. You cannot do a single transaction until, let's say, 5 people accept it. So there are all these new creations that are coming up. It's mad.
So it sounds safer in a sense because not only one person doesn't hold the key to everything.
Yes, you can have the multiple keys for people. You can say, okay, we are going to make this decision. If we want to purchase, for example, Bitcoin, maybe only 3 people are going to agree to this. Or maybe if we have to withdraw Bitcoin, all the 10 people need to agree to this. You can do this with simple exchanges. These are not big things in the Bitcoin world. But in the banking world, if you wanted to open a bank,
Everybody got to go in there, sign. You got to get IDs
out, private information divulged, and then they will ask you all these terrible questions. A guy from Nigeria today, like deep in some places, can participate in a bigger economy with Bitcoin. Right now, there is no way for him to use franc CFA or maybe open or maybe even buy stock. Like, how hard is for someone to buy stock?
Yeah, I think even with even for us, like, you have to go, you have to sign all this. Even to get your RSPs invested, you got to sign all this paperwork and everything else to go in with it. That's crazy.
Yes. So there are all these things that are coming up. And also even companies, right? Companies used to do initial coin offerings. Initial public offering. They go on the market, on Wall Street. Now, smaller companies are doing something called ICO. To be honest, ICOs are very dangerous at this point, but it gives you an idea of where things are going. Because ICO is basically something like this. You are Ibrahim, you believe in this podcast, it's super good, but you still need some tools, right? Like you need some...
Yeah, extra mic or whatever. You need people to invest in it? Is that what it is?
So you can create an ICO and then ask people for donation. You will give them coin in return, and then this coin will appreciate because every year when you get let's say you get more money because your podcast is so popular now, you can start distributing this to people who own your coin.
Oh, okay. So like it's self-creation in a way.
Exactly. You don't need Wall Street anymore to go there to have an IPO, to raise money. You don't need to go to, even YouTube.
That's interesting, yeah. Because even YouTube, where it started to now, like people are like millionaires.
There is a new platform on the blockchain. You are a content creator. Because how much percentage? If you put a video on YouTube, let's say, and there are commercials, what is the percentage of YouTube?
I think it's 50-50.
50-50.
And they done nothing.
Yes, but you can actually, there are platforms now you can put content and you put the price. So
how much you want to give that away?
You will have a YouTube video now, and then you're going to say, if you want to watch this video, you have to pay 0.001 Bitcoin. And then if I want to watch it, I will pay for it right away. I will get it. You get 100% of this.
Of that, okay.
This can happen. Imagine this, right? So we just talk about YouTube. You can do this in Airbnb. You can do this in like so many other places where there is always intermediary taking cuts for pretty much nothing. But if there is a decentralized system, a system like
which is what the Bitcoin,
the software.
Now, I don't know if for those that's been listening up to this far, and this is very passionate Bitcoin talk. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm not talking as much is because Youssouf is the expert. So today I came here to really to learn and to open my mind up, and the reason I'm giving it to you guys is, we just got to think outside the box a lot of times, and this is an opportunity for us to kind of deviate from different topics. You should not to be expert in everything, but I feel like you should be aware of a lot of things going on. Like, especially when you live in a city in the world that's changing rather quickly, you want to know like what's happening. And me, all I keep saying is, oh, this worth $10 million. Oh, if you did this, listen. Whenever anything hit mainstream, I feel like either you're too late to that party, or that should trigger you to start thinking, you know what? Okay, I missed this train. There's always a new train, a new wave that's coming, and you got to make sure that, you know what? For the next time, I'm a lot more educated. So maybe we don't get on the Bitcoin wagon, but another, I don't know, cryptocurrency comes up, and now as soon as you see it early on, you're able to assess and be like, oh yeah, like
this is a new one.
This could go here, so you can kind of
and since it's open source, because the one of the biggest advantage of Bitcoin or maybe this technology is the fact that it's open.
Yeah.
So there are so many things happening in this world already, like engineers and scientists, computer scientists working on this. So there are always an evolution. Bitcoin might not be the best. Maybe in 5 years, Bitcoin might not be there.
It might be okay.
But maybe there is a new coin. And then if you know a little bit right now, you might be well positioned in the future to make like a fine decision, like something really good.
Live from it. I want to take the conversation in maybe a little bit of a different route now.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about politics. This has been, actually, people have requested me to talk about this a little bit, but a lot of the time, the reason why I don't take on requests is because some topics are too sensitive for me to understand. So right out the gate, I don't just want to come and start spilling, improper information. But there's this new, this with the, and I think we can kind of, move our way into that, because though money has created a lot of opportunities, and a lot of opportunities has opened up a new door, it also, with every good thing comes few bad things. And I think the number one thing that's going to probably get rid of the whole earth is human greed. As we've seen our brothers from West Africa or so on, in the situation right now going in Libya, people being sold for money, and like, how familiar are you with that? And honestly, to this day, like, people every day, they send me video. Oh man, look at this. There was a story. Actually, this guy's in Niger currently. He's in Niamey, which is my home country, and he was saying that he was trying to get to. They sold him a dream about going to Italy. So his parents sold their farm. He got first you get obviously in the car, and when you get to Libya, I guess you got to cross, because all that country is all desert, right? Like, have you been there?
No, I have never been to Libya, but it is definitely, it's not a small feat to actually leave Nigeria or Niger or Mali to cross all the desert to go to Libya, to cross the border. It's so hard. I'm I'm a little bit familiar with the issue.
With the issue, okay.
Yeah, and
I guess it's the selling. I mean, what's crazy is in 2017 we're still talking about slavery, which we think like, and this is also being we live in our own bubble per se. Like, the city of Toronto, I always tell people, it has spoiled me beyond what I would love, because we live in one of the most multicultural cities in the world. So even racism, like, I've maybe experienced it once since moving to Toronto. It's been 10 years now, and we kind of, when it doesn't hit home, we're not concerned about it. And also, we got I like to call them the Facebook warriors, where they like to change their picture one day, and then the next day, say no to this, and we're not really as engaged as we should be. Yeah. My comment is because these people, they go there with the dream, they sell them a dream. Yeah, we're going to take you to Italy. You need X amount of money, and then once you go past a certain, because Libya right now, it's a war zone. I'm thinking.
No, it's a war zone. There is no control in Libya at all. There are multiple fractions controlling different sections of the cities.
It's almost like they have different gangs around certain parts of the country.
There are ISIS on the other side taking people. There is there's no legitimate government in Libya. And
since they killed
warlords, so you imagine all these Africans, when they cross the border, once they reach Libya, most of the time they don't even have any money left, right? because the previous brokers already
And we call them brokers.
Yes.
That's really what they are. They sell you, oh yeah, you come here and then we'll get you through. And then so by the time they get to Libya,
So there is no
they
money.
don't have nothing.
They have little to no money, or they have like hidden money all over the place. You cannot show that you have any money at all. So and then when you arrive there, you have to look for people who are going to cross border with you. If you are not arrested by one of those gangs, because one of those gangs, once they see you, a black guy working in Libya, especially in the Mediterranean area, there is a lot of racism in the Mediterranean. It's not only Libya. You have Tunisia, pretty bad. You have Algeria. I think I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Algeria, actually, they put Malians, a bunch of Malians, in the desert. There is no food. No one sells them anything. They put them in the desert so they can walk back to have you seen that? Like,
that is insane.
In Algeria, in Algeria, it's not past. It's unbelievable. So these guys, when they go to Libya, for example, and they are not, most of the time they get arrested, by some fake immigrant, like fake immigration or fake police, and those guys will try to get more money out of them. If they don't have enough money, they try
they even get them to call back home.
Yes. Do you get kidnapped, or maybe they will make you work? Some of these guys, they work. I saw a video. Some of the people, they work for 2 years in farms in Libya to collect enough money to be able to actually even attempt to cross the border. Because even if you have money, crossing on those boats actually it's something.
But as you talk about when you bring up boats. Yes. I watch this video. Listen, and this is why my when I go back home, I don't give people dream stories. I tell them, listen, what you see here, don't get happy, because that's why I like the story of the transition, or what should I say? Not the success story, but I'm losing my train of thought, but. Tell me the story on how you got there, but now I don't want to hear the story that you're here now. Like, I want to know what it took, because I think we underestimate the work. So when I go back home, a lot of times, a lot of people are envious of me, of course, family, cousins, whatever it is. But I always tell them, listen, don't use what I am now as your starting point.
Yes.
Like, we're talking like, I've been here my whole life, so it's a different type of ball game for me. And I think the problem is sometimes we go back home, we sell our friends' family stories. The guy came up here, he was doing dishes his whole career. He go back there, he got 10,000. Obviously, there's a lot of money. So we bring that car that we paid $1,000 for here, and it's worth $60. You know what I mean? So we sell you this dream, and we got people chasing a dream, and really, like, it's the greed of money.
Yes. I think also, to add a little bit to your point, I think it has more to do with like not knowing what is happening in those countries. Like,
the immigrant experience is a different beast altogether.
Living in Italy, I
don't even want to visit Italy. I'll be honest, because I've heard horror stories on how people get treated out there. Now,
there is racism. There is the function of how do you grow in the society, and this is not only specific to Italy. You have France. France is the biggest example. You go to one of the major streets in Paris, you see Africans selling corn on the street, bro. Like,
I'm gonna tell you my Paris story. When I went to Paris in 3 years ago, I went there, and my mom and my sister were there, so I meet up with them. But they got there the day before. So when I landed, they couldn't come pick me up. I was at a different airport. Anyways, I had to get on a train to go meet them at this mall, at this La Défense. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but if you go to Paris, you should know. So I was supposed to go meet up there. This is probably 2 weeks after there was a bombing that happened in France, in Paris to be specific. Yeah. So when I got there, I had my luggage, I had my backpack, and then I also had my, I just came off the plane. So I get to the mall, and, my fellow African, he's Senegalese, he wants to check. He telling me I can't get in the mall. So first of all, as soon as I land, I do speak French, by the way. Yeah. As soon as I land in Paris, I forget my French. French out the window. Okay? What? Excuse me. Sorry, what you say? And the person could be talking to me in French. Oh, I understand everything. and I respond to him in English. So when I got there, he was putting pressure on me. I couldn't go with whatever it was, and I was like, "What you mean? Like I can't go and no, you got to open up your suitcase." I said, "No, you violated me." No, so I started to talk, put a little pressure. I was like, "No, I'm a ball player. I'm here on a tournament."
Yeah.
Because in my backpack, I did have a lot of sneakers. If you know me, you know I wear sneakers all the time. So when he opened it up, he's like, "Oh, yeah, what tournament you in?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in the Junior League NBA." I don't know. I made some shit.
Yeah.
So I go, "Oh, can I take a picture with you?"
Oh, star. Let's get
Now,
some
and I was looking at him, my mom thinking like, God, like it's to the point where like, you know, you have to kind of lie, or even like the perception of how, you know, black people, even amongst us, we don't really.
Yeah.
We treat each other, I don't want to say just as bad, but we also don't treat each other with any respect than we should.
True.
And when this is happening with the slavery, is in your opinion, and this is just our opinion, doesn't really matter. We're not expert in politics, but is the government responsible for these people getting sold and things like that?
There is no government in Libya. Like, who are you going to blame?
Because I guess they trying to blame the home government for, I don't know, not creating enough opportunities so these people. Oh, that is true. There is no that country is, you know, everybody for their own.
Of course, like it's everyone for himself in Libya at this moment. But yes, you can take it back to the African countries themselves, like, you know, Mali, or you can take it back to say, why don't you create enough opportunity for these young African, you know, to stop them from just going all the way to these places. But this is controversial also in its own, because I'm pretty sure maybe you are familiar with the situation in Niger. The president signed a pact with France to have like a virtual border in Niger. Are you aware of this?
No idea. So you're giving me border with Libya?
Yes, like in Niger. So anyone who would like to be a refugee in the U.S., I mean in Europe, need to be qualified in Niger, actually. So there is, you cannot, you have all the immigrant.
Oh, you can't just get up and just land there and then become a refugee on the spot.
Exactly, because if you go to Europe, you can just say, okay, yes, I'm a refugee. But they don't want to deal with you in Europe anymore. They want to deal with you in Africa. So when Niger president, I think they already signed it, but it was a big issue. Everyone is saying, no, French or Europe cannot have a borders, because this is like creating a virtual border in Africa. Yeah,
like, so that means if you don't leave as a refugee, once you land there, it is null and voided.
Yes, and then when they catch you, so anyone who get caught in Libya or anywhere in the desert area, they bring you in Niger to process your case within Niger. So this has been...
This is some fuckboy shit.
Yes, this is a very, you know, it's like, it was crazy. People had like a lot of argument.
I actually, this is the first that I heard. But also, like, when we talk about Libya, did it not used to be like one of the most up and coming?
Libya
and they killed Gaddafi, and this is why I'm even talking about it, because it has to do with money. Because I think what ended up happening is he trying to initiate not a universal, but a United States of Africa currency. And then the Western world weren't fan of that.
They will never be fan of this, because you know the power that the US has to do with the currency that
like if Africa was to have a currency,
yes,
like in your expertise, like how big we're talking, like how big how big does that become?
That is a big issue. This is a very big issue, actually. In 14 countries, I'm not going to even talk about the rest of Africa. I'm just
maybe like in West.
Let's just take it.
So in Mali, they also use CFA.
We use CFA.
Okay, yeah, because we're almost. I mean,
in the same economic zone.
Yeah.
But you know the implication, the issues that are happening with CFA now. Like CFA is mayhem. Like
I've seen people burn their money. I go, wait, did you? You might need that. What you mean burning? What you burning?
Yes.
I'm like, yo, figure this out first, because once this burn, it's burn.
Some people definitely are burning it, because you know most of the economic issues in Africa are linked to the currencies that we use. Yes.
So who owns the CFA? Like this is just me.
So the CFA is actually printed by the French government.
I never knew that.
Yes, and then it doesn't stop there. So let's assume that you are a Malian government, and then you sold, you know, like say 100 millions of uraniums. You know, Niger is one of the biggest producers in uranium. You just sold 100 million of these. So these 100 billion that you just received, or no, 100 million that you just received from selling your uranium, doesn't go actually to you right away. French is going to, there is a percentage, they are going to, I think it's half, or maybe 40%. They are going to take 40% of that money, right?
And then
save it in their bank, and then give you the remaining 60%, right?
And just so you guys know, when we're talking about safer is like the Canadian dollar. It's just it's a currency that's being used by several Western Western African countries. Nigeria was one of them, Mali, and I think Senegal, Ivory Coast. Yeah, a few of them. And I think they also adopted like the same passport among these countries,
yes,
right?
They have the economic
CEDEAO, or whatever it's called.
So most of the issues that we have in Africa economically is currency, because our currencies, you cannot African countries don't have enough power to control their currencies.
So they have to, there's a middleman which then takes everything.
They have to rely on someone to back them up, to say, okay, we are your guarantor. We're going to make sure that
this money is worth something.
Exactly, your money is worth something. So, but when they do this, they are not doing this for free, of course. Right.
Well, for these 40% of
these African countries, it used to be more than this. Actually, it used to be more than 40%. These African countries, they don't know how much money they have saved in France. Actually, France doesn't give them any record. Imagine that you're putting your money in the bank
and you don't know how much you have.
Yes, you don't have a statement for it. If African countries withdrew their money from the French central bank, those only 14 countries, when they withdrew their money from central banks in France, it's going to cause a huge mayhem.
And also, that's interesting because the president of Zimbabwe just today he had to resign.
Yes.
And at some point in time, he was like this revolutionary guy who, he took over, and even the jokes that they say on Facebook, I don't know if it's true, because some of it be like, how does old man come up with it? But anyways, so initially what he was doing, which I kind of like, I'm going to be honest with you, because when he took over at some point, he chased away the white farmers. Listen, that's gangster to me. I'll be honest with you. Though it was, obviously it created a whole lot of other issues. Yeah. I think that part of it, I could kind of we do need to, to get to a high point, you have to be at your lowest. So even though, I don't know, I'm just giving you my personal perspective from reading this is, he got rid of all these people, but they now have their own currency, I believe. And at some point they was even called like the poor billionaire, because can you explain to us a little bit of how that happened? It's
crazy, So this is what happened when you let government print money, right? Because this government, if they print money, they are going to be qualified, like among people who print money. So, okay, is Zimbabwe more important than, England, right? Or is British government stronger than the French government? So
right.
If the French government is stronger, then their currency is going to be valued more.
Okay.
But Zimbabwe, even though they have the capacity of printing their money, people don't believe them. So the government can print all the money that they want.
It still don't. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. People will be like, oh no, I would rather have $1 US than holding your money, holding the Zimbabwean money.
Oh, which I think at some point they open up the door to have several currencies being accepted in the country.
Exactly.
Not just like Zimbabwe currency, but it had like US dollar, euros.
Yes, because it's worthless. And then, how people actually decide who's worthless. Like, which currency is worthless? How do you decide this? Is it because the government is not stronger, or maybe because the president is sleeping? What about in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Like in the U.S., what happened? Like Trump is not like a very stable guy. Why the currency is not falling? So those type of questions, people ask themselves a lot of questions when this happened.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe is pretty much like, if you work in Zimbabwe, I met a lady in Zimbabwe. We took a bus together to go to like some crazy places. She told me that she used to work in a shoe factory, and at the end of the month, she get paid in shoes.
No fucking way.
And she has to go and sell these shoes because there is actually no money. Like, there's no money circulating.
So people are being in today. Can you guys imagine that somebody some of y'all, if you even miss half your paycheck next week, you'll be, it's. Can we compare that to the government? Like how the system works is like once one thing falls apart, it's a trickling down effect. Like
it's a trickle down.
Some of us, if we miss our next paycheck, don't clear, rent is not being paid, credit cards, our car getting repoed, and things like that.
It creates a bunch of other issues. On top of this, in Zimbabwe, even if you have money in the bank, let's say you have $10,000 in the bank. Actually, when you go to the bank, you cannot get the money back. You can't. There is a line. There is a line you will take here from here to maybe the other side of that area.
Yeah.
Every morning in front of banks, I was there in Bulawayo. I saw it. You will see long lines, people, and then they can get only $25 a day. You can't, even if you have more than that, you cannot. The banks will actually refuse to give you money. So having your money at the bank doesn't guarantee you anything.
This is why you gotta. This is why and this is the whole conversation behind. If you guys are not getting everything, listen, we are experts in here, yes. Or at least
and then
expert in our own ways.
Yeah, exactly our own way. We are just giving our point of view. We are not expert, and then it's just allowing people to do their own research. Maybe creating some,
It gets you get the light bulb go off your head. Like, hey man,
you go research for this.
And this is why these cryptocurrency, like Bitcoins and other, would strive, because if a Bitcoin is implemented in these societies, you have less of this big of an impact.
That's correct.
In terms of, imagine having to line up every day and they telling you got 10,000 in there, you can only pull out.
And then you are supposed to go work. Actually, in Zimbabwe, people would rather not work. That's what it is. Like, why do you work if you're not going to get paid?
Yo, but for whatever reason, I thought Zimbabwe, because the Zimbabwe girls in Toronto, they kind of,
I can say that.
You know what I mean? But true. So I'm thinking, I want to go to your country, but
and they are pretty smart. They are all of I've never met a Zimbabwean, very educated.
I know a few very, very, very good people.
Yes. So it's not like they are dumb that they have this situation there. It's because
even the president how does a president go for 37 years?
37 years. Mugabe has been there for 37 years. But please, be careful. Zimbabwean actually still kind of
they love him.
They're restricted.
I knew it was his time to go, where they used to have pictures of him at conference and he was asleep.
Yes.
I said, get the senior citizen.
They always, even recently, he was supposed to give a speech.
Like he's yes. Imagine his mindset. Like you are beyond old, and you in these conference falling asleep, and you still talking about. And I heard he was preparing a campaign for 2018. I said no, okay, please have it. But I mean, as we're talking currently, actually today, I seen it's been all over the news that he's resigning.
So Africa, you have all these old leaders, and then you have these new technologies, things that are happening around the world that they are not able to,
to implement,
right?
That's very interesting. The conversation. Honestly, it's so many. We could probably keep going here for 2 hours, but it's so intriguing to me because people still being, and they saying they selling them for like $200-300.
Which one? Like
in Libya.
Oh yes.
Like people being sold and things like that. But you know what? I'm all for the Bitcoin situation, and I don't have rich friends, but I'm gonna need to go find some. By the way, if you have some money that you're willing to lose, okay? Activated podcast, get in the DM. We could get this thing going, and I don't know, maybe buy one or whatever. But this is good.
You don't need to buy one actually in Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of Bitcoin. You can buy $100 Bitcoin.
Oh, you could buy $100 worth.
Yes.
But is it too late though? Like, because it's like everything else. Like,
that is
you don't buy when it peaks. But they're saying that this is not even the peak, is what they talk about in terms of, being worth 10K per coin now. Like they're saying like there's room to grow.
That's a lot of people are saying. In 2014 or 2013, people were saying, "No way! There is no way that Bitcoin will reach, let's say, $1,000. There is no way." And then there was like crashes. It will go to like 150, and then crash to like 25. It will go to 2,000. And then around that time, to be honest, like some of the earlier Bitcoin that I had, the price went up so much that I couldn't keep them. I say to myself, this I have to sell it.
So you mean to tell me, Youssouf, I could have been talking to a millionaire.
So like no.
And you know what? That's the first question I asked them. I said, all this Bitcoin going on. Are you a millionaire living humbly here in the city of Toronto? Because
I have a very I cannot keep Bitcoin. I learn about it. I like to learn about it. I like to be involved.
So like to be a millionaire today in today's world, how much Bitcoin did you need to have back then?
Oh no, that's even not a lot.
Like $100 worth, $200 worth.
If you had, let's say, $100 Canadian in Bitcoin, let's say in 2014, now like that would be a lot. That would
Like
be
a couple $100,000.
Yes,
right?
yes, more than that.
God
for
damn,
sure.
we missed that train.
More than that for sure.
We're too busy trying to become rappers.
But you know what they say. One of the arguments that they say is, think about the number of millionaires in the world. How many millionaires do you think exist in the world? Like, okay, let's say only in Canada. Do you think how many in Canada are there more than 21 millionaires in Canada?
I don't think so.
Millionaires? There are so many millionaires here. I know so many millionaires on Harbourfront, like young kids. They have
Okay. So there's a lot.
So there are more like than 21 million millionaire for sure.
Oh, you mean across the world?
Yes, even in Canada, like I think there are
21 million?
No, Canada. Okay, Canada. No, around the world. Let's say around the world.
Yeah, around the world, maybe about 21 million millionaires.
Yes, 21 millionaires. So imagine all of those guys, if they say they want to have one Bitcoin. If each millionaire buy only one Bitcoin, and we know that we have only 21 million Bitcoin. So that means if those guys try to buy it right now, they cannot get it, actually. Millionaires cannot buy one full Bitcoin. Like
they're not allowed to?
No, because the supply, right? Like the number of.
But can they buy it from somebody if somebody wants to sell it? Okay.
Yes, if they know someone who can buy it, if they know someone who has like one full Bitcoin, they can buy it.
They could go buy it.
But my idea is, what I'm trying to say is, there are enough people in the world to push the Bitcoin price so high.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because the limit it's limited. You know, the number of limited.
Anything that's, it's like limited pair of, when Jordan dropped limited edition, we only giving out 10,000, everybody jumps on it.
Yes.
And then you resell it right away for like $200-$300.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I guess iPhone was like that too for a while, but now they make so many of them. It's like, you don't even, it used to be so hard to get an iPhone the day it launched. Mm-hmm. To now, like, it's becoming this thing because I've gotten into it before, but now I try to do it now, and I realize, oh man, this thing is not like it used to be. Because I used to be able to pick up, 2, 3 the day that it drops, and instantly flip it for maybe $400 more.
Yeah.
So if I sell 3 phones, I'm able to buy an iPhone it costs me nothing almost. And I always use, my credit card to buy these things. I don't use my own money. I use the white man's money. Use, that's what I got is good credit for. Yes. You got to use your credit. And then if I don't sell it within 10 days, I return it to the store. Yeah, so there's no risk for me at all.
Yeah. So there is a potential, to see the price of Bitcoin going higher. And, if you go to some blogs like Reddit.com, for example, they always like to say, the best time to buy Bitcoin was yesterday. but
today is today.
But, today is the next best time, so they have this idea. It's, you can still buy it. You can still buy it. It's not late for you to get in. And if you look at the statistics, right, because the market cap of Bitcoin right now is maybe I think it's 140 billion US.
Okay.
That is very small compared to Apple. Let's say the market cap of Apple.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is right here.
Yeah.
And then you have Apple with this huge size,
with this huge,
700 billion or something like that in market cap. So no, it's not late.
It's not late.
Yes, you can grab maybe a couple of them. And then the one of the statistics is, I think less than 10 million people actually own Bitcoin in the world. Less than 10 million. We have billions of people.
Yeah.
And these guys, most people will be involved in it. More people will try to get a couple of Satoshis.
Yeah.
So, yes, this is not an advice, of course. We're not giving you advice.
Hey, man, do what you want. But this is...
Yeah.
This has been good, man. Anything else that we're leaving out? We've talked a lot. This is by record is my longest podcast by far.
We haven't even touched the technicalities, and then to be honest, this is my first time doing this, so I'm like really
like I said, like I'm super excited because like I said, most of these. Everybody that you've heard on the podcast so far is nobody that I had to chase down. Initially, when I started, I would reach out to people who I find to be inspirational. And, people only do what they care about. So people that you guys have heard about is people that reach out to me, and I'm like, of course, let's do it. Like, it makes sense. Let's do it. So we're definitely going to do this again because, there's so much information out there that we might not be able to compress it in just one podcast.
No, it's not
we'll do a part 2 at some point in time, and for the holidays as you get ready to spend all this money, just think about how many maybe Bitcoin or portion of a Bitcoin you could have owned instead of buying
any other cryptocurrencies. Because if you think about it, buy $100 now. Don't worry about it. Just like
let it sit there and then
just let it wait.
Yeah.
The increase in percentage is hallucinating. You look at the price of Bitcoin.
No, it's
at the beginning of the year. Yeah. Like less than 10 months ago, Bitcoin was $1,000, $1,000.
Shit.
But now it's 8,000. And some of the statistics are saying that by the end of the year definitely it's going to be like 10,000. Okay, we are talking about US dollar right now. We are in the US.
Okay, okay. Because I was
in Canada already.
Yeah, Canada. It's I checked today actually as we're speaking. Is 10,000.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll wrap it up on this. Any other? I mean, Youssouf.
Oh man,
thank you for.
I will never finish. I will be here talking about this forever. Yes, what we're gonna do is once you post this, I think people will reach out to you with questions, things like that.
Yeah, and then we'll gauge and put out a part 2. And like I said, this is what I mean. I came to you, we did it. You know what I'm saying? So there's no issue at all. So if people have questions, can they contact you?
They can contact me.
Are you on Instagram at all?
I have Instagram, but I rarely post anything.
Okay, so if you have any questions, hit me up. Okay,
exactly. You eat Ibra, or you post it on his Facebook. I will see them.
And then we'll go from there. Well, thanks very much for everybody who's been tuning in. Of course, this is the Activated Podcast. I'm your host Ibu, along with Youssouf, and you've officially been activated. Peace.